So welcome to a new edition of You Are My Borough with myself, Scott Wilson, and Dom Shaw from the Northern Echo. How are you doing, Dom? One game to go. We're nearly there.
One game to go. The big one. The Manchester United derby. Michael Carrick versus Tom Cleverley at the Riverside this weekend. I'm well, mate. How are you? I tell you, I feel under test. I feel when I saw you rock up there in your shirt with your professional-looking background.
Well, I'm here in the office. It's a rare outing into the office. So yeah, Echo Tower live and exclusive from Echo Towers.
I should have gone for the classic shirt, shorts, and a shirt, shouldn't I? When I'd seen that you had a shirt on, I should have.
Dom, on the beach.
Yeah, I am. Yeah. Knocked off, ready for the summer. Although Boro clearly aren't. That was a good win.
You know, you beat me to it. I was just going to say, but Boro not on the beach. Yeah, I mean, let's start then with a quick look back at Cardiff. You were obviously down there. It was a game that kind of threatened to be a real kind of non-event, but really from a Boro point of view, it was anything but. Certainly that second half kind of goal spurt. I mean, classic cliche alert again here, but Boro aren't going to want this season to end, really, are they? Because for the last month, 2 months, it's been as good as we've seen all season.
When you teed up there with a cliche alert, I thought you were going to describe Alex Gilbert as being like a new signing. We'll get to that.
we'll get to
that. Yeah, adds to my list. Yeah, and not just Boro, but several other players are like that. Yeah. Clearly, Latte doesn't want the season to end. Gilbert won't now after that first game if he's going to get a few games. Matt Clark is another who's in form. Lewis O'Brien, I know he didn't play well. He didn't play at Cardiff, but he's been playing well. Yeah, it does feel like that. It's a strange one, isn't it? Because so often when you're in the position Boro are in, and have been in this position really for a number of weeks, that top six has looked unlikely. You are on the countdown at the end of the season, but I don't know. I don't know whether it's just me, but it hasn't felt like that. I don't think.
No, definitely.
Sunderland up the road, they've been on the countdown, haven't they, for weeks and weeks now. Clearly, there's stuff going on there, but the season can't end soon enough. Definitely hasn't felt like that with Boro.
So you touched on a few players there. Let's go and have a chat about Gilbert then. I mean, obviously came in last summer from Brentford's kind of B team. Got very, very little opportunity to show anything really for the first 2/3 of the season, but has gradually worked his way into the squad. Obviously got the start down at Cardiff and grabbed it with both hands, playing in really the number 10 role. Obviously got a goal. He's already chipped in with a couple of assists coming off the bench in the last month or so. It feels like it's been a real slow burner with him, but it feels like we're starting to see the player that Boro presumably hoped they were going to be getting and going to be able to develop. And he's another one that you would look at next season and think, well, it could be a really big season for him next season.
Yeah, you would hope, because it wasn't just that Cardiff game, was it? We've seen flashes. I thought it was really positive from the bench at Leeds. I think he only had maybe 6 or 7 minutes from the bench at Southampton, but he made a difference there and crossed for Latte last goal. It has been a difficult season for him, and I think a loan move would have probably been perfect for him in January, but Morgan Rogers obviously went, the Boro weren't planning for, and then Matt Crook's situation developed and he left. So Boro were already left short in that area, so they couldn't really merit letting another player go, even though he hasn't played much, if any, football. I think I counted up at the weekend, maybe 75, 76 minutes of championship football all season. He is a unique case, Gilbert, isn't he? And he joined, as you said there, from a B team, so he hasn't had a lot of first team experience, and a loan maybe at a League One club probably would have been ideal this season, but now he'll be desperate to kick on, won't he? He'll almost certainly keep his place for the final game against Watford, and even just with those 2 games, presuming he does start on Saturday, which I'm sure he will, even with just those 2 games, it'll just give him a bit more of a spring in the step, won't it, as he comes back in pre-season, and really, if he can kick on and establish himself as more of a first team figure next season, then it's an added bonus, isn't it? Really.
Yeah. I mean, do you see him as a kind of 10 rather than a 9 or a wide player? I mean, clearly, there's every chance he'll be moved around a little bit because Carrick tends to do that in his attack anyway. But from what you've seen of him, and certainly from what you saw of him at the weekend, what do you think his main assets are, and where's he going to end up in this Boro team if he can hold down a place in it, do you think?
I think he's good at finding that. So as a 10, I think he's good at finding those little pockets and knitting together in midfield and attack. He was good at that on Saturday. You could see him. I'd imagine he'd be comfortable playing off the left, potentially even off the right, but certainly off the left. But I think it's as a 10 where he's looked most comfortable. And he is positive. He gets on the ball and he turns and he goes at goal. I think his vision's good. And if you'd listened to his interview with BBC Tees, with Mark Drury from BBC Tees after the game on Saturday, we that was in the paper and online on Monday morning. Really honest, really hungry, and said this has been a tough season, but he's desperate. He believes he's at home in the Championship. He believes he's ready for the Championship, and he's desperate to kick on now. I think that's another boost as well. You're going to get a player back in the summer who's desperate to take his chance and force his way into what's going to be a pretty crowded area, isn't it? Because you've got Isaiah Jones, you've got Riley McGree who's going to come back, you've got Marcus Force who's going to be coming back. You've got, we don't know what the situation is with Sam Greenwood, but you've got Finn Azaz, and then I'm sure Boro will look to bring in at least one in that area. So it's going to be a crowded area that will hopefully only benefit Boro and bring the best out of a lot of them.
And is the way that he's developed in the last month or so, Gilbert, more proof that actually Boro's recruitment work last summer is probably still going to turn out to be even better than maybe we thought it's been. Rodgers, clearly a big tick in the box, if nothing else, just purely in monetary terms, but in identifying someone and starting to develop them and then being able to sell them for, a pretty big fee. But Vandenberg, clearly laugh. Now Gilbert. We're starting to see signs that when Boro are bringing in these younger players, often from either overseas or who haven't been getting a chance in wherever they've been playing in the academies of Premier League teams in this country, their success rates start to look pretty decent so far.
It is, and that I think was the big takeaway from Saturday. You look at Lat's form. Clearly, he's been nominated for the April Player of the Month award today. Vandenberg has been immense, hasn't he, in what has been his first season in the Championship as a teenager. You mentioned Gilbert there, who came in. Morgan Rodgers, clearly, as even Unai Emery and John McGinn have been both said in the last week that they've been surprised at just how quickly he's become a key figure at Aston Villa. I think that's exciting. I think that's exciting for the summer because the difference this summer is Boro are going to be strengthening from a bit more of a position of strength rather than having to replace. Now, that's not to say that nobody's going to leave this summer, but there's not going to be the overhaul that there was last summer. They're not going to be having to replace 4 or 5 of the very best players. And I think the other thing is if you're a young player or you're a representative of a young player, be it overseas or in the UK, you look at Boro, don't you, and how young players have progressed, the route to the Premier League, hopefully with Boro, but if not, you look at Rodgers, and it's an attractive option, isn't it?
It's becoming increasingly attractive, I think, because, if nothing else, young players are going to look at it and see that under Carrick, they're going to get a genuine chance. And even if that chance doesn't come 1 month in, 2 months in, 3 months in, as it didn't with Gilbert, young players are not just going to be kind of shuffled to the background and forgotten about under Carrick and here at Boro, I don't think. They're going to get chance to bed in and develop and get a genuine chance to break through, which is what's happened with Gilbert, isn't it?
I think as well, credit to Carrick, because Gilbert hasn't had a kick this season, really. He hasn't had a look in. He's been on the fringes, several games when he wasn't even in the squad. I think it says a lot about Carrick's man management skills, that he's managed to tread that fine balance between, clearly Gilbert's been frustrated, but not frustrated to the point where the pet lip's been out and he's been sulking. And I think this was a point at the end of last season when Carrick was really largely keeping a settled team, and yet he managed to keep everyone on board. Now, it's easier when you're winning games, isn't it? But this season, that hasn't always been the case. You can imagine at times Gilbert looking and thinking, the team aren't playing well. The team aren't winning. Why aren't I getting a chance? I think it's credit to Carrick that he's managed to keep players like Gilbert on board. And Jonny Howson, I was listening to Jonny Howson was on the 12th Man pod earlier this week, and And he was talking about Carrick and saying how kind of what we see is what they see. I suspect he'll be a bit more open on the injury news with his players than he is with us. But calm, like doesn't kind of rise, always in control and honest as well. And players at every club always say, don't they want honesty from the manager. They want to be straight down the line. Yeah, I want to know where you stand. Yeah.
You mentioned Latterlath there, and obviously the Player of the Month nomination, which is massively well deserved, and hopefully he will win the award because it's hard to think of a Championship player who's had a bigger impact in the last month than Latterlath has. I mean, are we going to be heading into a summer where his future is one of the topics of debates? Because I think we probably expect there's going to be talk around Hackney. There's a good chance there'll be talk around Van den Berg, given how well he's done this season. Up until a couple of months ago, Latterlath, you probably felt wouldn't be part of that conversation. But increasingly now, I think Boro fans are starting to get at least a little bit twitchy about Premier League interest, maybe interest from Italy, where obviously he played with Atalanta before he came across to Boro. I mean, are we at that point, do you think, in terms of his career trajectory, where he's done enough in the last couple of months to suggest that teams will be seriously looking at him?
I think there'll inevitably be speculation, more because that comes with the territory of being a centre forward that scores goals, doesn't it? If you're a striker, if you're a striker in the Championship who scores goals, you're linked with Premier League clubs. So I think speculation is inevitable this summer. But I think for what it'd take to tempt Boro into doing business, is there going to be a Premier League club that would be willing to pay, I don't know what, double figures? Surely that's what Boro are going to be looking. 25-year-old, security in the contract, 17 goals in all competitions in an injury disrupted first season. Boro have got the power in this, haven't they? So I would imagine you'd be looking at double figures plus. Are a Premier League club going to be willing to punt that on a player who they'll have only watched for a month or two at the back end of a season? I think speculation's inevitable, but I think, like, clearly might be made to look daft. I think it's extremely likely that Latterlath's still a Boro player at the start of next season. What do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I think I think there will be interest, but if you compare him to, say, a Gyökeres last summer, well, he'd done it for 2 full seasons in the Championship. He was clearly ready for that move. I think you're right in what you're saying with Latterlath is he's had a brilliant purple patch in the last 6 weeks, couple of months. But it's only really been that. There was the injuries obviously in the early stages of the season. There were times in the early stages of the season when he would snatch at chances, when the composure wasn't there. His game's developed an awful lot, and there's an awful lot of potential there, and Premier League clubs will always be interested in that. But I think you're right. I think it feels to me like he's going to have to do it for at least the first half of next season for there to be, £10 million plus offers put on the table. I'm with you. I'd be surprised if Boro were kind of backed into a corner where that type of money was actually there on the table for him this summer.
And I think the other thing, clearly Boro don't want uncertainty with the players and transfer speculation. But we mentioned the Rodgers deal. You look at the progression of the likes of Cameron Archer and Ryan Giles and last season and Chuba Akpom's development, but then more so this year, Van den Berg, Hackney's progression. Yeah. If there's lateral speculation, again, if you're a young player and you learn of Boro's interest, you're going to look at that, aren't you, and think, like, this is a forward step for me. Because even if I want to get the Premier League, yeah, clearly Boro want to get there. But if I don't get there with Boro, the chances are I'm going to be able to put myself in the shop window down the line.
Now, at the other end of the kind of age, experience, transfer, contract scale is, as you've mentioned, a certain Mr. Howson. I think we've said on previous vids, haven't we, that it's always felt like a no-brainer that the deal would happen and Boro would get Howson on another year, and Howson would kind of agree to that. Yeah. As you say, he did a pod this week with the 12th man. Didn't explicitly say, I will be a Boro player next season, but probably went about as far as he could without saying that, didn't he?
Yeah, it was the strongest so far, wasn't it? And that's considering he told us only a couple of months ago that he's desperate to sign and desperate to stay, desperate to sign a new contract, no intention of retiring. He said, I can't see any reason at this stage why it won't be reached, or words to that effect. He wants to stay. Carrick wants him to stay. Those Steve Gibson and the powers that be at Boro want him to stay. Everything's pointing to an extension, isn't it? And I'd be amazed. I'd be amazed if that didn't happen at this stage. Howson was great. He was talking about in the interview, opening up on his time at Boro and looking back. It's remarkable to think he was talking about this and laughing at it when he first came in. He got a bit of flack, didn't he, in the first few months? He on his feet. I suspect it was probably a case that he'd come in as maybe a bit more of like an all-action goal-scoring midfielder. And again, he laughed at this. Now, clearly, his role's changed at Boro.
Yeah.
But it is remarkable to look back at those difficult early days, isn't it? And think what he's gone on to be. I mean, he's definitely in the club legend category, isn't he?
I think he's got to be. Yeah, I think he's got to be. I mean, you kind of forget that obviously his first real big, well, not his first, he clearly played against Boro before that, but he was in that Norwich team, wasn't he?
Yeah.
The beat Boro at Wembley. And then all of a sudden, he, like you say, he rocks up at Boro. And I think you're right. I think when he signed, it was probably as a dynamic box-to-box, all-action midfielder. And clearly, as he's developed, as he's got older, he's become much more of a kind of specialist defensive midfielder. But we're going to do a couple of vids next week. We're going to do at the start of the week a kind of wrap-up piece where we'll have a chat about player of the season, goal of the season, moment of the season, all that kind of stuff. And then we're going to do a live vid at the back end of the week, which will be a question and answer session where you can fire anything at us and we'll give our best kind of views on it. But without wanting to do any spoilers for kind of player of the year. And I mean, he's still going to be massively part of that conversation, Jonny Howson, isn't he?
It is. He is, sorry, yeah. And it's the player of the year awards on Thursday night. And now, apologies if this has changed by the time you watch it, but Boro put out earlier on Wednesday that limited tickets are still available. So if they are and you fancy it, you haven't got a ticket yet, then jump on there and get a ticket and get along. Yeah, Howson definitely in the conversation. I think Howson, Vandenberg, I think, is the winner. I think Vandenberg's the player of the year. But I think Howson, I think Matt Clark, Seni Dieng maybe for his first half of the season, and Latte Lath for his second half of the season. Yeah. I think they're probably the standout. What was that, 4 or 5, I think? Well, I know we touched on it briefly, but who's yours then? And we will do this more length next week.
Do it in great depth. I think it's Howson. I really do. I think for just consistency and influence and being good when they're the highs, but still pretty good when they were lows and Boro was struggling. I still think that Howson takes some beating. Like I still think he's probably the most influential player. Put it like this: if Boro were playing on Saturday for an absolute make or break promotion game, one game had to get the positive result to go up, Howson would be the name I would want on the team sheet ahead of anybody else. And
this is the thing when you discuss the contract thing. Like obviously, it's all he brings off the pitch and his experience and his leadership, but the top and bottom of it is he's still one of your best players.
Yeah,
he's still one of your best, most important players. And if he signs a contract, the likelihood is you start next season, regardless of the summer transfer window. You start next season if everyone's fit with Howson and Hackney as your midfield too, providing obviously there aren't transfer developments with Hackney this summer.
Yeah.
And what is he? 36 before the month is out. But yeah, he's still as crucial to Boro as he's ever been, isn't he?
So let's have a quick look at the weekend. I mean, obviously, you know, as we've said, it's not exactly make or break. There are quite a few bigger championship games around this weekend, and we'll maybe have a quick touch on them before we finish the vid. But in terms of Boro, I think we're pretty certain, aren't we, that Michael Carrick's not going to be making wholesale changes and throwing a whole load of kids in. Gilbert obviously got the start down at Cardiff. There's every chance he will retain his place. But it's going to be a strong Boro team and obviously a kind of last chance to see them at the Riverside this season, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it'll be likely. In an ideal world, Carrick gets treated as he did Cardiff, in that he goes strong. But if you're in a position, he'll give the youngsters a chance.
Give them
Like
a chance at the end.
Caleb, Lennon, Matthews, all coming off the bench. Gilbert's bound to stay in, isn't he? I thought, surprised to see Barlasser in ahead of O'Brien on Saturday, but he played well. The only other potential call, Thomas at left back, Bangura. Thought Thomas probably had his best game for Boro at Cardiff, but Bangura's fit again. That's the other one. And Watford, I mean, they beat Sunderland, but I mean, anyone's beating Sunderland at the minute, aren't they? With the way they're going, it is a bit of a great unknown, really, with Watford, isn't it? New manager for now. I mean, a year down the line, is Tom Cleverley still going to be manager of Watford? You'd say it'd be unlikely, wouldn't you? Given their
they might have had about 5 by then, mightn't they?
I think it's a chance for Boro to finish the season on a high.
It definitely feels like that. Yeah, it definitely feels like that. I mean, I guess one of the interests is it could be our last look at Thomas, Greenwood, O'Brien. You know, the players, couldn't it?
So there's the 4. So Ayling, Thomas, O'Brien, Greenwood. What would be your hunch as to what the summer will look like for them?
So my hunch would be that Ayling, Boro would like to sign him, but I just wonder if he's going to end up with Sheffield United. Greenwood, I don't think Boro will sign. Thomas, I don't think Boro will sign. So I think it will be the final day for both of them at the weekend. O'Brien, I think Boro will try and sign, but it'll come down to what league are Forest in and how expensive is that deal to do. So I think Boro would like to do Ayling and O'Brien, but I don't think either of them are as simple as just, right, that's it, it's done. I suspect Thomas and Greenwood will head back after the weekend. What about you?
Yeah, I think the fact Greenwood has been out of the team in recent weeks is pretty telling, isn't it? I think Greenwood and Thomas are actually both in a similar position in that you could imagine Boro look at it and think, Greenwood, clearly immensely talented. We saw flashes of that at the start of the season. £1.5 million is a snip, really, in the whole scheme of things, isn't it? But so there's always that temptation. But on the evidence of the second half of the season, I just don't think he's done enough, has he? Thomas, clearly hasn't banged the door down to earn a deal, and I don't think he'll sign. But again, you could probably look at it and think, he is a player who played in an FA Cup final. His best years ahead of him. If we can get him maybe back on track a little bit. I mean, there was only a couple of years ago there was talk of him being in the England squad. I don't think he'll sign. I don't think Boro will sign him. But you can see the kind of thinking there. Ayling and O'Brien, I think O'Brien clearly it comes down to the financial situation with Forest, I think, doesn't it? And whether they stay up or go down. But even if they go down, I think they're going to have to cash in on players, aren't they?
Yeah.
Ayling might well come down to security of length of deal, maybe. A 32-year-old is just 1 year off, 2 year offers. Does that have an impact? I'd seen Birmingham linked as well at the weekend, although Sheffield United feel more of a threat, don't they, clearly, than Birmingham.
Well, just because they've got the parachute payments and and
just geographically, logistically,
everything. Yeah. If it came down to a straight head-to-head between Boro and Sheffield United for Ayling to choose, then clearly Boro's trump card is the fact that he's been here and had really good experiences in the last few months, and that should count for something. Sheffield United's trump card will almost certainly be that they'll be able to offer him more money than Boro will be able to do. So it'll come down to a choice in that sense, probably.
Yeah, but you would expect, as I said, Greenwood, I think it's been telling that he hasn't played these last few weeks. Ayling's one of the first names on the team sheet, isn't he? Thomas is a flip up between Bangura, Barlasser and O'Brien. In terms of the others who kind of potential departees this summer, I think Anthony Dyke-Steele.
Well, I'm just going to jump. I guess we should mention Paddy McNair, who...
Yeah, I'd expect McNair to go as well. Yeah, I think.
And do you think that there's will we see him, as in, will he be out on the pitch at the final whistle waving goodbye, do you think, even if, as looks likely, he's not fit enough to actually play in the game?
I think so. I think he's likely to be there.
Yeah,
I mean, there's certainly been no indication of falling out or anything like that.
I'd be very, very surprised if Paddy McNair was to be leaving Boro, if he wasn't, A, afforded the opportunity, and B, would want the opportunity to go and kind of say goodbye, because it's 6 years that he's been with the club. He's had some really, really good times with Boro. He's had some challenging times, both individually and as a collective. There's been a lot of ups and downs, but he's been a really good servant for Boro. I don't think anyone can deny that. Played in a host of different positions under a host of different managers, and in some ways, I think it would be a little bit sad if he was to leave at some point this summer without some kind of a goodbye opportunity.
Yeah, and I think he'll leave with like a fond farewell from fans.
Yeah.
There's definitely a McNair special vid pod to be recorded if and when he does go, because it does feel like there's been various chapters within his time.
Yeah.
Signed by Tony Pulis, then didn't get a kick under Tony Pulis. I remember him playing at right wing back in that miserable night at Newport in that white kit when he was thrust in and had a nightmare. Then Woodgate came in and quickly made clear he was going to be a key player for him. I remember Woody telling me he's going to play in midfield. I want him to be a key player. And then he's been an influential figure really over recent seasons, but has been in and out at the same time. Yeah. I think there's definitely kind of a longer piece to be done on his time at Boro, but he is a significant earner, and I do think it's inevitable that he goes this summer. And it'd be nice if, as looks likely that is the case, that he gets some sort of farewell on Saturday.
Yeah, agreed.
What do you reckon? Let's have. You mentioned there about around the grounds. I had a look earlier. 7 of the 12 championship games, there's some on the line. Which I was actually classic championship. I was actually surprised. I thought it might be 1 or 2 more than that.
Yeah,
being the championship.
Well, a couple of
who's your 2 going up? Who's your 4 in the playoffs? And who's going down?
Yeah, so I was going to say a couple of the situations that looked like they were going to build to a real climax actually feel like they're nearly done, don't they? So let's take the top 2. Listen, the championship's the championship. You can never categorically say that can't happen. But if Ipswich fail to get a point at home to Huddersfield and usher Leeds into the Premier League, then that will be one of the all-time last day championship just jaw droppers, won't it? Yeah. I can't see it happening. Surely Ipswich probably win very easily. I can see a scenario where Ipswich are 3-0 up after half an hour and it's all ears and it's absolute party time. Now, having said that, if Leeds are 3-0 up and it's goalless at Ipswich at half-time, then my goodness, we potentially do have a climax there. But no, I think Ipswich win. So I think Ipswich go up as second behind Leicester, which will be an incredible achievement for Kieran McKenna, really. I mean, I know they were quite well fancied at the start of the season. And in fairness to you, Dom, you were on the Ipswich bandwagon right from the word go. So kudos for that.
I'll be digging that video out and sticking it out.
Exactly. Get that clipped up. Yeah, don't clip up the bit where I said Millwall were my dark horses. I think we'll get on about that. But yeah, so an incredible achievement, and Kieran McKenna is clearly a manager, a head coach who's absolutely going places. It would not surprise me if whatever happens with Ipswich next year, he's getting a pretty high-profile Premier League job not too far down the line. Leeds are going to finish 3rd in that scenario, aren't they? Southampton are going to finish 4th. I think it'll be West Brom and Norwich.
I do.
I don't see that situation changing. And to be fair, it feels like they deserve to be in there, really. They've been the 2 that now have been in, pretty much whenever we've been doing these vids for the last 2 or 3 months, looking at permutations and can Borough-gate crash it, it's been West Brom and Norwich who are the teams that have been in there. So I think they do deserve a crack at it.
West Brom, Norwich are 3 points clear of Hull, so they're just with a superior goal difference. They're just about there. West Brom are 2 points clear of Hull with a better goal difference, so they effectively need a point at home to Preston. Preston home isn't a bad final.
It's not, is it? No, it's not.
And Hull are at Plymouth, who probably need a result at the bottom end. Yeah. So that has the look of being a trickier game. Just before we get to the bottom, I think the other thing with Ipswich is there Huddersfield at home always looked like a good final day. But had Huddersfield been in a position where a win might have kept them up, then there's an added complication. Huddersfield are down, aren't they? I think they need to be a 15-goal
the goal
swing.
difference is so bad, isn't it?
Yeah, so Huddersfield are down, which leaves 4 teams trying to avoid the one spot. Birmingham, Plymouth, Sheffield Wednesday and Blackburn, who both just need a point. Here's one for you. Blackburn are 4 place. Blackburn are 3 points ahead.
Yeah.
But they're at Leicester on the final day. Now, I know Leicester have won the title, but a Leicester win takes them to 100 points for whatever that's worth. Yeah. So if Blackburn lose there, then the 3 teams below them would need to win for Blackburn to go down. Bear with me here. But Sheffield Wednesday are at Sunderland. Now, you'd back Sheff Wed there, wouldn't you, on current form? The way Sunderland...
Yeah, I would, yeah.
Plymouth are at home to Hull. Win. I mean, tough, but Plymouth are at home. And Birmingham are at home and Norwich. Now, Norwich are probably there already. I mean, I don't know. I mean, is there a possible scenario where the 3 teams below Blackburn could all win? And
all win.
Blackburn could go? Again, if that happens, I'm chopping this up as well as my Ipswich.
Yeah. I mean, that's a bold call. There'll be a wild price at the minute to go down Blackburn because it needs so much else to happen. I mean, I'm with you. I think Sheffield Wednesday will get something at Sunderland because I think that Sunderland, as you've said, you know, it's felt like they've been on the beach for ages. There's a lot going on at that football club. It feels like Sheffield United will get something there. So I expect Sheffield Wednesday to get out of it. Plymouth at home to Hull. I mean, Plymouth have been on such a kind of bad run in this second half of the season. Birmingham against Norwich. I still think one of them goes. I've
had a fear for Plymouth for weeks. They're getting sucked in. Never been in it. There's always one team in there.
There's always one. I think at the minute I'd probably go Plymouth because I think, having said that, mind, if Birmingham only get a point, then Plymouth would probably have to lose by 2 or 3 to go down.
5 they'd need to lose that. So Plymouth would be fine. Is it a 4-goal? Is there a 4-goal?
It would, there's 4 in it at the minute. Yeah, so it would have to be at least 4. Yeah, I think, boring as it sounds, I think the 3 that are in there will be the 3 that go. I think it'll be Rotherham, Huddersfield, Birmingham. I don't see Birmingham winning. And obviously, as we've just said there, goal difference means that they really have to win to have any chance. So I think it's those 3. I think it's Rotherham, Huddersfield, and Birmingham.
And while we're on predictions, then the final one of the season. You know what I was thinking last week actually, but was it Mark Lawrenson's? Like when Mark, the predicted league table went viral and Liverpool were always on something like 100.
Yeah.
We'd have had Boro's title winners, I think, this season. We haven't predicted negative results very often.
I know.
I think we might need to maybe take our maybe go with head rather than heart a bit more next season.
Next season.
That said, I'm going with the Boro win on Saturday, 2-0.
Yeah, I think Boro win on Saturday. I think, yes, Watford got the result against Sunderland, but that was their last home game. I'll go 3-0 Boro.
Latte laugh on the score. You need to be a bit more. What were you? You were very thorough with your predictions.
I was very thorough, and I went with Howson, didn't I? I should have gone with Clark as the first goal. That was the wild card first goal, but not the right one. Okay, Latte have to get the ball rolling.
Yeah.
Just before half time, kind of roughly half hour mark. Second Boro goal early in the second half, Azaz. And then a third goal with 10 minutes left from Luke Ayling.
Oh, prompting the questions where you study his body language on the
absolutely, yeah. Luke Ayling with 10 minutes left just to cap off the 3-0 win.
There's your fiver. There's your fiver bet this weekend. Well, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. We'll be back as Scott said, next week for a couple of vids, we'll do a wrap up at the start of the week, looking back on the final day of the season and the season as a whole, and then we'll do a live Q&A at the back end of the week. We'll give you a heads up on exactly when that will be taking place when we do our vid at the start of the week. Do subscribe if you're watching on YouTube if you haven't already. Leave us a rating if you're listening on your podcast channels. Enjoy the rest of the week, and we'll be back early next week. Take care.